Welcome back to Good Morning Tobago on Tobago Update viewers. We are now being joined by Mr. Anslem Richards, who is an economist but also the technical advisor to the Chief Secretary in the Division of Finance, Trade and the Economy. Good morning and welcome to you, sir. How are you doing?
Good morning. I'm fine. Good morning to you. Good morning to Tobago. Good morning to the world wherever I need you. I'm fine. I'm happy to be here.
Great. So we have so many things happening within our economy at this point in time. We have budget day announced for October 2nd. It was announced yesterday by the finance minister. We have these reports coming from the banks, Republic Bank in particular, reducing the spending limits for U.S. currency, for credit cards and VTM cards and so on. I mean, and of course, you have the challenges in getting goods across to not just Tobago, but to Trinidad and Tobago as a whole. Getting the goods cleared on time at the at the port as well through customs and immigration. We have a whole lot affecting the business sector at this point in time. So I'm gonna get, I guess, an overall perspective for you on just putting all these things into context.
Okay. So first, let us deal with the reported foreign exchange shortage. That's no secret. That has always been a factor, a character for our forex market. We have what you call it, a managed float system, the meaning that the system is not fixed. It's not a fixed exchange rate like Barbados have two Barbadian dollars to the one US. We have a floating forex rate, but it is managed, meaning that the government holds it at a certain rate, probably 6.20% thereabout, and it floats between that and about 30 or 50, 650 thereabout. So the central bank releases foreign exchange in the market when the demand goes up to bring the rate down and to keep it within that band. So we have that problem, and our major problem has been the decline in our fortunes from our exports in the energy sector. So we have that challenge. It's a structural issue that we need to attend to at the national level, and that has to deal with the diversification of the national economy to create new foreign exchange earning, income earning sources so that we can boost the foreign exchange earning of the country. Tourism, Tobago offer a healthy option, a very, very healthy option. Barbados is a tourism-driven economy. We are not hearing those kinds of reports coming out of Barbados. You go to Antigua, you can withdraw US currency from an ATM machine. So we as a country needs to understand that if we have a destination like Tobago, if we do the kinds of investment to build Tobago in the kind of tourism destination it can be, and bring the kind of visitors to this island, then it contributes to solving our forex problem. So that is on the foreign exchange side. We have some structural issues in terms of the economy, and Trinidad and Tobago, we have to look at what we are doing internally, because the issue of transportation of goods and the foreign exchange shortage, all of that ties into global inflation, cost of living, the impact it is having on the vulnerable in the society. So we live in this world that is digital, that is fluid, with many moving parts, with a lot of touch points across the system. Yes. And therefore, we have to look at the thing in the holistic way of refining the system to put in the kinds of protection that is necessary to ensure that when there are movements in the international economy, we have the protective system within our economy to respond to those changes. We have the political environment, and the political economy is another issue. The conversation between Trinidad and Tobago is something that we need to manage at a particular level. That is something that we need to pay some attention to. Yeah, the budget, we will see how that conversation reflects itself in the budget statement.
Certainly. So I want to stay a little bit for this part of the conversation on the foreign exchange issue that we have right now. Now, over the past few years, as our energy revenues dropped, whether it be because of global factors, the drop in oil prices globally and so on, or a drop in production, we continue to be reliant on the energy sector for the bulk of our foreign exchange. And no matter how many people, how many voices within our society talk about the need for developing other sectors, tourism, whatever it be, there seems to be that reluctance. But yet, we're in a situation where we have to control the foreign that is available to our population.
Well, you see, change is a difficult experience for some people. And you have an economy that has been built and structured along the energy sector, right? We see with the whole climate emergency and the shift away from fossil fuel in terms of the main source of energy. That alone is a conversation that speaks to the fact that you need to diversify against energy, because the demands for energy will be going in south, and then there will be a new north coming in terms of economic activity for new sources of energy, renewable energy. You see about electric vehicles and all of that. So the demand for gas will go down, and therefore those movements, we have to timely monitor them and make the kind of strategic investment to shift the structure of the economy to respond to those growing markets. So we have not done that well. You listen to the Prime Minister at the end of the cabinet retreat, and he still comes to the nation and say, we talk about diversification, but at the end of the day, the fortunes of the country still rest heavily on the energy sector. But what are you doing? If you look at what they are doing in Guyana, you will see a different conversation, and probably Guyana have learned from the mistakes of Trinidad and Tobago. They are harvesting their energy resources, but they are diversifying the economy rapidly. The reports are that Guyana grew by over 100 and something percent last year. I know if you're coming from a very low position, a
That
small
is a
growth,
lot.
you
I mean,
know.
and then as we
So,
touch on Guyana, because one thing that's interesting that that they've been doing, so they're hosting the CPL finals this year, but they started this last year where they twinned the hosting of CPL with their carnival. So it encouraged more people to stay. That's more forex within the country and so on, and
well,
more contribution to the
well,
economy.
Guyana, quote unquote, now in terms of foreign exchange earnings, US dollars, Guyana is the center we can call the Federal Reserve for the Caribbean. Guyana is experiencing unprecedented revenues from oil and gas. And therefore, Guyana has the resources to do the kinds of things that we see is happening in that space. And fortunate for them, they are coming at a time in the energy sector that has a lot of history that they can take note of and don't make the kinds of mistakes that we would have made in Trinidad and Tobago, depending exclusively on the energy sector, using the money and not recognizing that that is a depleting and unrenewing resource, and they have not built other sectors so that when that goes down, these sectors are up and can power the economy. And that's why we are facing the kind of forex challenges we are facing in the country.
So
We have
looking
not
at
strategically married the options that we have across the economy as a whole.
So looking ahead to the budget coming up in a few weeks' time, I mean, are you hopeful at all that, the budget would reflect that drive or an attempt to diversify in any sort of a meaningful way? Or is it just going to be just a talk?
Well, if I should use the message from the Prime Minister, the last conversation he had in terms of the news conference with the national community, if you should take that as a point of inflection for what will likely happen with the budget, then the budget will be heavily reliant on the energy sector. Again, there will be a conversation around the need for diversification, but we have been having that conversation for over 40 years in this country, and we have not seen any affirmative action that speaks that the government is committed to move in that direction. Tobago have been crying out and say, I'm a virgin destination. Look me here, invest in me. I will bring all the men who are looking for a virgin destination to your island, and they will come with their wallets, they will come with their credit cards and so forth. Even more than that, we are in this climate crisis globally. There's a new emerging sector in the tourism industry where they speak about green visitors who are looking for these green destinations. And Tobago presents a very viable option where that is concerned. So we can now package Tobago as the green island of festival, call it what you want, and market. We have the oldest rainforest in the Western Hemisphere. Trinidad and Tobago can sit at the table and really develop it. Trinidad has to make the investment. Tobago don't have the kind of resources unless we bring in the foreign exchange. But the government of Trinidad and Tobago has to set the tone and say, well, look, we recognize that we have a gem here in the Caribbean. We can monetize this gem. We are going to make the investment. We are going to put in the infrastructure, and we are going to put Tobago where it should be in terms of global tourism. I know they made one attempt with the Sanders project. I don't know if that was the best
attempt.
One attempt. I don't know if that was the best strategy to go. But there's a bigger conversation that we need to have as a nation around how we are going to diversify this economy. Tobago presents a very viable and immediate option to the country to start that diversification.
Certainly. So we were going to take a pause, have a pause in this conversation. We're just going to take a quick break and we'll be back, but we'll be continuing talking about the foreign exchange situation and some situations that's going on within our place here in the economy. Don't go anywhere.
I say, thanks a favor to wake up and hit. Yeah. Hey. Tobago updates. Na, 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 na. Good morning, Tobago. Na, 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 na. Wake up with Kandace and Denise.
Welcome back to Good Morning Tobago on Tobago Updates. Viewers, we are continuing our conversations this morning with Mr. Anslem Richards, who is an economist within our space, but also the technical advisor to the Chief Secretary, especially out of the Division of Finance, Trade, and the Economy. Now, before we went to the break, we were speaking a little bit about the foreign exchange problem. And as you may have known by now, that Republic Bank Limited has reduced the spending limit on its credit cards from for US dollars for for transactions, in other currencies, whether it be US or any other currency. So it's the equivalent goes from $10,000 and it's now down to $5,000
per month.
per month. No, this is becoming a problem. It is expected that other banks might impose similar restrictions or similar reductions. Republic Bank might just be the first one, but this is going to have a massive effect on the small and medium-sized businesses.
Definitely, because of the structure of the economy, as we said before, most of what we consume and produce is either we consume it for consumption or we import it on the other end for consumption in the production process. So because of that very nature, there's a high importation factor in the structure of the economy that requires us to have that kind of access to foreign reserve to pay for those imports. The foreign reserve earnings of the country is linked directly to our oil and gas sector. Our production levels have been very, very low, historically low, and the prices have fell significantly in the last probably year.
Yes.
If you recall last year, the Minister of Finance projected the budget was predicated against an oil price of over $100. I think it was 116 US dollars. Currently, the oil prices are hovering around $80 per barrel. That's $36 US on every barrel if we do that straight line calculation. So we have those structural issues in the economy. And the solution to that is that we have to sit down as a nation. We have to make the investment. We have to do the technical work and the analysis to see the sectors that offer themselves to improve and impact our foreign earning capabilities. And as I said before, if you look at some of the tourism destinations that have recovered rapidly from the 2020 COVID induced reduction in terms of visitors arrival, you go to, they are not really having this foreign exchange challenges that Trinidad and Tobago is having. As I said before, you go to Antigua, you can push your credit card in the ATM and you can withdraw US dollars, EC dollars. So it means therefore there's that level of liquidity in terms of foreign exchange in the system or in the economy of those countries. Guyana is a case by itself. We can't speak to Guyana. Their earnings from oil and gas is out of the space that we are speaking to. So put that aside, we can't speak to that in relation to this. You go to Barbados, yes, Barbados have its own fiscal challenges, but they are not being, affected in the way we are affected.
But even when you look at the way how Barbados handles their economy and things like that, they're always looking at other ways to develop their banking sector, whether even if it is to consider cryptocurrency and all those things like that as well.
It speaks to leadership and the kind of visionary leadership that is really leading Barbados. When you look at the leadership in Barbados, and not only the prime minister, but the persons around the prime minister, because sometimes they speak through the prime minister because of the kind of technical information you're going. You're saying that Barbados is doing something right because they are investing in human capital, they are investing in science and technology and research. So when the prime minister comes out to speak on an issue, she's well researched, she's well informed, and she can deliver. Yes. But when you come home, you see it's a bravado talk, it's a old talk, it's a blood politics conversation that is continuously impacting the way we develop this country. And therefore, if we don't change the nature of our politics and how we bring people to the table and how we co-create solutions to our problem, we are going to be speaking to this issue, and probably our next generation will be speaking to these issues that we have been speaking to for over 3 generation.
Yes. And you know, it's funny that we are not talking about reducing our reliance on the energy sector when our prime minister is at this time attending UN conferences and they are speaking towards the sustainable development goals, which
Exactly.
speak to reducing our reliance on fossil fuels.
Yeah. I don't know, have we as a country set targets in terms of our energy transition? That is one of the ways that will demonstrate to the world and to the nation that we are really looking at this energy sector in a very structured and organized way. Have we set targets to say, well, okay, by 2050, we are going to, combustion engines going to be reduced by 40% in this country and we're going to switch over to electric vehicle? Have we said, okay, our new power plants will be renewable energy, solar, and so forth, or by 2050 we are going to produce 50% or 20% of our energy consumption will be from renewable energy? Are we having those kind of deep conversations that will set up the country for that energy transition into those new areas that we need to be investing in? Are we doing that? Are we hearing those conversations? Or are we hearing oil and gas and who over the Caroni Bridge and who under the Caroni Bridge and who in Scarborough and who in Port of Spain? We can't develop that way.
No.
We have to do the work. We have to have the conversation, and there will be disagreement. You have disagreement in your home. You and your husband or your significant other don't always agree and say, I never issue, but there's a way to resolve the differences.
Now, coming back down to this foreign exchange issue that is so crucial to the way that we operate here within our society, especially for Tobago, because Tobago is largely micro, small, medium-sized businesses. We don't have the large conglomerates here. But when you reduce the spending limit on credit cards, which is what a lot of business people use to purchase their goods and services, and let's be real, just the economy, the way our economies of scale does not allow us to produce things, not even computers and so on. It limits the people who are importing, let's say, phones to sell. How much can they purchase a month?
So here that happens. Here's the impact of that. So you reduce the formal access to foreign exchange. There's a black market arrangement where people selling US dollars now for over $8 for one. You know what is the impact of that? So if you pay more for the foreign exchange, who carrying that cost? The consumer.
Consumer carries cost.
So cost of living going up. We already have a food price. We have an inflationary constraint and an inflationary structural issue in the economy because of imported inflation. You have reduced the access to foreign currency. People have to access it in the black market, pay a higher price. So you're adding to the imported inflation because there's a black market factor now that is adding to the inflationary equation. So at the end of the day, it's the man and woman on the street who have to buy these consumables will be paying a very higher price, deflating their ability to take care of their family. That's why I said we're living in a very, very fluid and a world, what we call a world of intersectionality with touch points across every system. So if you feel you're doing something and it does not affect you here, you need to think again. You need to look at the whole system and see where the parts are touching each other. Because you make a decision here, it affects you quite down the road. And that is how you run a country. That's how you manage an economic space. That's how you manage development.
And what about how does customs and immigration also factor into this? Look, you're already limited in what you can bring in, but when you bring it in, it takes so long to clear. By the time you clear it, you already have a high bill to clear it.
Well, you see, we are running the public service, and this is not about public servants. The administrative structure of the public service is not currently is not designed, and it is not appropriate to support any modern form of government operation. That's the bottom line in this country, and that's the institutional crisis that we face in this country. For instance, you have a custom, which is a national entity. You have an importer in Tobago importing goods, right? His goods are here, bam, bam, bam. His documents are here, right? He cannot pay. He cannot even pay online for his money, for his goods from Tobago. He has to go to Trinidad with his bill of lading, bam, to clear goods. This is 2023. You're talking about a digital world. If all things should be online.
Yes.
You go online and you pay. Why it is I have to go to license office to renew my license, my driver's permit? Why I can't go online, take a picture of my face? They have all my information there. They run it against the database. Bam, that's the man. Bam. I have a temporary license. Either the email renewal, bam, I print it out. The police reach me in the street, there's my thing, I collect my hard copy, if you want to that, in the mail, or I go and collect it in 3 days by license office. We have to build systems, we have to build structures, we have to re-engineer new processes, because as I said, the world is fluid, it is changing rapidly. And if we don't respond to those changes, we are going to be in the position that we are in, because we are not responding to the changing environment.
Now, I also want to pose this question in terms for the business community, because I mean, this is the heart of our economy right now in Tobago. How can our business community grow? Our small business business people, the ones with the little shops, the ones that are just trying to do this little sales and things like that, just to try to make it by at the end of the month. How are they now, with all of these complications, expected to grow and develop how are we supposed to develop a robust private sector when all of these things are working against us?
Well, here's my argument on that, or here's my discussion or my thesis on that.
Okay.
Now, size for me in the world that we live in is not a constraint, right? So you have physical shops and you have global shops in the same physical space using technology. So the market for a small Tobago business using technology is no longer the 60,000 people in Tobago, because you can put your small Tobago physical shop online and you can create a larger market for your product. There are shipping agencies that can ship your. So we have to see business in a different light. And that is the kind of conversation our leaders need to have with our people. We have to see this place in a different light. Yes, there will be structural issues in terms of size and things, but if our business people start thinking in that way, and they start designing and shaping and reorganizing the business in that way, the issue of size and constraint will disappear over time. Yes, immediately it is there, but if you start building your business around that kind of virtual concept and recognize that your market is now the world, and you create arrangement and relationship with other people, you ship your product out, you can have a very small, intimate, indigenous business in Tobago and doing huge business in the world. You don't have to be in China to impact China. You don't have to be in Russia to impact Russia. I'm sure people in those parts of the world are listening to this conversation now, and you are not there. I am not there.
I also want to ask you now, the Minister of Finance gave us commitment to, speaking with the business community, the central bank, to coming up with a solution for this foreign exchange challenge that we're having. But this challenge is not a new one. This has been something that's been happening since 2017, where you would go to the bank just for simple US to travel, and you can't even get sometimes more than 100 US to travel at a time, right? Do you think the minister will actually do something about this foreign exchange problem that we have and making it available to the banks?
Do you think he has the capacity to do anything?
It's not for me to say,
let me
but
just put it in simple
I'm putting it to you, the experts.
The talk is nice, but here's the thing. Look at this foreign exchange thing in a simple way. You have 2 barrels, one here, one here. So this is the barrel of foreign exchange that the central bank owns, the country owns here, right? And this barrel is 5 meters. And then this is the demand out here, which is coming from the country for foreign exchange, and this barrel is 100 meters. If you don't grow this to 120 meters or 100 meters to satisfy that, what else do you have? And the growth in this has to do with how we diversify. Because what we are owning here at this 5 meters in foreign exchange is what the oil and gas sector provides. And then you have multiple other sectors outside the gas sector, the manufacturing sector, the commercial sector, business, trade, that, demanding all of that from this small sector that is producing only 5 meters, but you have multiple other sectors that is demanding 100 meters. So to fix this problem, we have to grow this barrel to at least 100 meters so we break even. And the strategy has to go about 200 meters so we have a reserve. So we have 10 years of foreign exchange cover. That, I don't know if the minister is in any position to grow that in this budget.
Because it requires investment.
It requires investment, and it requires restructuring of the economy. That's the simplest way to put this problem. But they will have the conversation, and they will continue to talk, but then it's action beat all talk all the time. And these are simple problems. These are cash flow issues. These are basic business issues, cash flow management. And the reason why they are restricting it is because they don't have enough, so they have to manage the cash flow out. Cash in, cash out. So the banks are saying our resources are limited. We have to manage the outflow because the inflows are low. So we have to manage the outflow, which is the amount the credit card can use. So they restrict it by half because we have to manage the outflow, cash flow management. Simple economics.
All right, well, we're going to take another pause there and we're going to go for a break. But when we come back, we'll continue with the conversation with Mr. Richards. Don't go anywhere.
Start to rise, the energy fill the sky. Yeah. Hey. Tobago updates. Na, 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 na. Good morning, Tobago. Na, 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 na.
Welcome back to Good Morning Tobago on Tobago Updates. Viewers, we are continuing our conversation this morning with Mr. Anslem Richards, who is an economist within our space and also the technical advisor to the Chief Secretary out of the Division of Finance, Trade and the Economy. Now, we spent quite a bit of time talking about Forex and the challenges that we are having right now with foreign exchange availability within the country. And like I said, this is something that's been happening for quite some time. Started with the reduction in oil prices globally and coupled with the reduction in what we produce. Because we are at the very lowest that we've ever been at in terms of what we produce for oil and gas within our country. Now, looking ahead, we have the budget coming up in October 2nd. And the THA presented a budget of what was it? It was like 4.3
Let me give you the figures.
billion, right? So I had the figures in front of me, but they disappeared from me in front of me.
The technology operates.
Yes, but you know that budget was predicated on an estimated 6.9% share of the national budget.
Yes. So.
And the question goes again, what happens if we don't get that? Because the history has shown we have never gotten that much percentage of the national budget share. And from what the Prime Minister said on Thursday as well, he indicated there would be some reductions and some changes coming that people might not like, which is why he put an emphasis on before the budget, there's going to be a spotlight on the economy. So he's going to like set things up so that the public is aware and then sort of, I guess, drop the bomb on everybody.
Okay, so we at the Tobago Assembly, the Chief Secretary and Secretary of Finance, Trade and the Economy would have presented the Tobago draft estimates. And we would have asked for $4.5 billion for fiscal 2024. That was broken out in $3.3 billion for the recurrent expenditure and $1.5 billion for development expenditure, 1.15 billion. And we asked for 92.07 million for URP and 44.77 million for CPEP, right? That was predicated against a projected national budget of 65.7 billion. And we asked based on our projection, and we did a very precise projection last year. The minister really asked if we had overmen in the Division of Finance, but it's not overmen, it's just good economists who understand how to do forecasting. So we continue to move our demands to the upper end of the DRC recommendation, which is 6.9%. That works out to $6.90 out of every $100 that the government proposes to spend in this budget. I think that is a fair ask. We have plenty of development work to do in Tobago. Our development has been stymied over the years because of low resource flow into the island. We are saying that we have developed a comprehensive work program. This is the required funding to execute that program in fiscal 2024. That's the ask. We know that the country, even in our calculation, Dr. Hazel and myself, when we did the forecast and we see the numbers, we thought that it was a bit, given where the oil price was trending, it would be a bit challenging for the national economy to probably come in with a budget of $65.7 billion. But that is what the numbers turn out. And when we do our internal recalibration, we recognize that there was very little fiscal room for us to make the adjustment based on what the Chief Secretary and the Secretary of Finance and the Executive Council had proposed they wanted to deliver to the people of Tobago for fiscal 2024. So then we retain the projections and we retain the ask for 6.9%, and the numbers, as I shared, what we are asking for. Yes, there are challenges in the national economy. We recognize that. We are saying that our 6.9% will be predicated against whatever the Minister of Finance and the Central Government decide that is the available amount of money for the country to spend. It's 6.9%. If they say they have $100, give us $6.90. We'll do our business in Tobago. We'll make the adjustment because that will have an impact on the overall 4.5 billion that Tobago is asking for because it is predicated on a global figure. So we are at that place in Tobago. The national economy has some challenges while we are recovering from the COVID impacts on the economy. There are some challenges. One of them is we're still heavily dependent, and we spoke to that all morning, on the oil sector, and the numbers and the global price for oil is not really as high as is not favorable for us, and therefore we expect that there will have to be some adjustment because we have, as I said, cash in, cash out. The minister can only spend what is available, and the Prime Minister also signaled that there will be another deficit budget. It means therefore the expenditure will be more than our revenue, right? And that signal that our revenue income or revenue intakes, our income are low based on the projected expenditure. And therefore, we are prepared to look at what the adjustments are likely to be. When the numbers are presented, we will do the analysis against what we would have done for Tobago vis-a-vis the national economy, and then we will have the conversation with the people of Tobago as to what we can do, what we can't do, and whether we were treated fairly. That has to be part of the conversation when we look at the overall pie, how the pie was cut. So we will look at that, and we will have a very honest, we will use the data to inform the conversation. This wouldn't be on feelings. We will tell you, look at the numbers. This was the size of the pie. They give us what? They normally give us $4.03.
Yes. No, I mean, taking all those things into context and then even speaking to some challenges that the business sector is facing. And this is a repeated call from them, and this has to do with outstanding payments that predates the current administration. A lot of it predates the current administration, late payments, which is affecting the cash flow of a lot of businesses, which is in turn affecting the way that they can conduct business within the space. And, in a way, it is causing a weakening of the private sector. What's the strategy in terms of dealing with that on a serious level? Because, I mean, I understand that you can't pay everything all at once because you only have this much. But how are we really going to be treating with the business community?
Well, let me speak to that. And I think I've said it repeatedly on this platform and other platform of this nature. When we came into office, we inherited, and the Chief Secretary came probably at the end of January in that year and gave a financial position of the THE as he received it. And the liabilities of the THE at that time was over $700 million. And that did not include the $165 million bond financing. You are faced annually with a development program of $300 million. It means if you have to pay that, you can't do no current work.
Yes. So
you will spend 2 years or 2.5 years of your 4-year term just paying bills, and you can deliver. Your car fix a road, your car build a retaining wall back by the house that the woman went inside, come down, your car fix bad rack, you can't patch no pothole because you're just paying that. For me, that does not make any political sense or strategy for any administration, because you will just be servicing the debt of the last administration. While government is a continuous process and you have to take over the liability of the previous administration. But in the context of Tobago, that has a small pool of funds for development works, and look at the state of our aging public infrastructure, it is difficult, challenging. We have had conversation with the central government. We have presented the case and the numbers to the central government. We have said to them, whether the PDP had won this election or the PNM had retained office, there was no way any government in Tobago could have paid off these liabilities without significant cash injection from Port of Spain. And this has to be a special arrangement, a special program. We have had this conversation on numerous occasions with the Ministry of Finance. Whether they are going to give us $100 million a year for the next 6 years to pay off these liabilities, whether they are going to give us $200 million based on what is available, we have had the conversation. Only once they have responded, and the Chief Secretary, the information is in the public space, they have given us $100 million this fiscal year to pay some contractors. There's no way. And that's just the reality. It is not that this administration has a barrel of money there that was set aside to pay the contractors, and they say we wicked we ain't paying them because they worked for the last administration and I will not pay them. It's nothing like that. It is just that the resources are not available. You are given $300 million a year to do all the road fixing, fix schools, repair school, fix the bridge on them. We know the destruction that the weather had on our road infrastructure at the end of last year. You have all those things, and we look at the terrain of Tobago. We are prone to land slippage. The maintenance and upgrading of our public road infrastructure is a very expensive exercise because of the way the island topography is designed and the way our roads are winding along the coastal edge, the coastline of the island. So we have those internal structural challenges, but we are being continuously underfunded.
But is there any sort of strategy to even develop a payment plan? Because
we have developed a payment plan. Remember too that we have found a number of discrepancy in the claims of some of the contractors coming out from the forensic audit, and that is still ongoing. Right? We have found that. So the situation is not as pure and virgin as some contractors are making out to be. They have been over-invoicing, double invoicing for work that was not done, and a whole heap of issues that needs to be cleaned up in a public sector settings. Because one of the things in the public service, and contractors must take note of this, you cannot pay an invoice unless it is verified. There is a completion certificate. It is verified that the work is done. That is when you get pay, because that is what is required by the Public Service Financial Regulation of 1965. I know we are not living in 1965, but that is the law. That is the regulation. So what has happened? We have a number of invoices, no completion certificate, no verification that the work was done. As a matter of fact, there are invoices for works that were never done, that were submitted for payment. And there are contractors who have been paid for works that were never done. Which is a matter for the fourth court to be investigating. Because we have to put a stop to this thing, Contractors who have been stealing from the people of Tobago need to face the brunt of the law. I make no excuse for saying that. There have been contractors in this space who have taken Tobago monies, millions of dollars, for doing absolutely no, and we have documentary evidence of that. And that the contractors will be paid, but the process has to be sanitized. They will be paid for the work that was done when the evaluation is done. And we have been paying the contractors. We have been paying contractors. We have paid contractors over $40-something million in payments.
This is excluding the 100
but we have been making small payments. Well, when we see savings, because listen, as I said, you have two barrels. You get $300 million. You have a liability of $700 and something million. If you take that $300 million and pay that thing, you can't do nothing. That is the reality. You can't even, when flood come by you and broke down your wall, we can't even send workmen there because you just don't have the resources. So then the THA is in this constant juggling of the resources, looking at the spreadsheet over and over to see where you can make a saving. Or we can't complete this project now. Okay, we could move the funds here to pay this contractor, pay this bill here, pay this liability. It is a very difficult exercise. Running this island is not an easy event. So because we have had, and I will say it, and this is not political, the reality is that the financial affairs of the THA over the last 20 years was not managed with the level of prudence and deliberateness that was required to deliver a disciplined fiscal and financial system within the THA. So you are now picking up all these issues. We have had to, there are issues to be resolved in the institution that is called the THA, administrative issues, management issues, and so forth. So it's not that this administration is saying we now pay the contractors. The resources are just not there, and we have been having the conversation with the central government over the last 2 years to assist by providing the resources that we can pay down these liabilities. Once we have done the audit and we verify that the work was done, we are prepared to pay the contractors. That is the model, that is the methodology. You can't do it any other way.
So is there any guarantee now that all the contracts that are undertaken by this present administration, that they are above board and they are in line with what the law prescribes, or how the law instructs contracts should be engaged?
Well, If you understand the new procurement regulation of law of 2015, it says in the law that if you do a procurement process that is inconsistent with the law, the contract is null and void. The severity of that law and the preciseness of that law in terms of its design to control the procurement process is verbatim in the law itself. And therefore, if any person wants to do any project and they want to do it successfully, they have a legal requirement to ensure that all the prescriptions of the law and the regulations are observed. Right? So it will be difficult for me to think that persons within the THA will know what the consequences are, because a contractor who has bid for a project and who feel that the project was the procurement process and the evaluation wasn't fair can report that matter to the procurement, the controller, OPR. They can come in, stop the project, seize the document, do the investigation. The accounting officer who awards the contract is criminally liable for any misconduct. So the law itself puts a controlling mechanism around what people would have had a wayward tendency to do things contrary to the law. Right? And the consequences that this law prescribes. So from that perspective alone, that legal requirement, it is very difficult and it will be foolhardy on anyone to try to circumvent the law, to do contract in this current environment that is inconsistent with the prescription of the law and the regulation of that procurement, that public procurement and disposal of public property act.
What would you say now to the population of Tobago, especially the business community, who expected that with this new administration, that we would have a better situation for business? Because there's a lot of business people that complain daily that they're not seeing the liquidity and the invigoration that they expected to see. There in Trinidad, things are progressing, it seems, and in Tobago, it seems as though like spending is still very low in Tobago, and the profit generation is still kind of low for a lot of businesses.
Right.
So what would you say to those?
So it goes back to a point that I made earlier about looking at your market. And remember, you as an individual, you have a responsibility to create a business environment, a market for your business, right? We know that the government will, being the largest spender in the space, will create what we call the enabling environment and all of that. But remember, as I said, and I've been saying it all morning, they are constrained to the limit in terms of the resources that is available to the THA. Even the administrative resources in terms of the administrative processes of the THA, because of the archaic nature, I said that the administrative process cannot even support any modern form of government. That doesn't exclude the THA. We have to do the administrative reforms. So there are those institutional structural issues that will probably have some kind of indirect impact on the business economy. But the heart of this matter is that the THA has limited funds, right? And there's only so much it can do. The major part of the THA expenditure is on recurrent expenditure pays for wages and salaries. That is the money we pump in the economy so that you could go buy the same business they're talking about and buy your roti, buy your fried chicken, buy your thing, carry home your grocery to feed your family and things. So that is consistent. So that is part of the business drive, right? The physical infrastructure in terms of creating the enabling environment to expand the economy, to bring people in, that is constrained. $300 million a year, very little. That is the same pool of funds that contractors have been fighting for to get part of for the last 10 years. That way, and it's because the fund was so little bit, the last administration started saying, go and build the road, we go pay you when we get money. And we end up with $700 million plus in debt. So if we don't manage that in this space, remember, we have to find a way. We cannot take that same pathway. We already have $700 million. We can create crazy economic activity in this space, We could hire contractors and say, build that there, and they go and they borrow the money and they build it there, and then we end up 5 years down the road with a similar situation. This administration accumulate another $700 million, $400 million, adding to that, so we have $1.something billion in liabilities in the next 5 years. How do you manage in a space like that? It calls for prudence, it calls for discipline, and we know that in the back end, we are going to pump up the economic activity in the island. There are some structural issues that we are dealing with. We are having the conversation with the central government. There's a need for, we are looking at foreign direct investment. The administration would have put out a general request for proposal. We have had some interesting proposal coming in from foreign entities that are looking at Tobago for investment. The Chief Secretary have commissioned the preparation of what we call an investment and all a they use the word universal, and all Tobago investment prospectus that will present to the investing global community that these are the areas the THA is looking for foreign investment in. These are what the THA is going to provide as inducement, whether it's land, whether it's whatever, and so forth and so forth, to get this thing going, because we recognize that beyond the budgetary allocation, if we have to move the economy, if we have to make this place the greatest little island on the planet, there has to be a heavy cash injection to transform our economic space through the route of foreign direct investment, because we are not getting the level of cash inflow in the traditional budgetary way. $300 million a year is what we call the cottage industry style. You know what is a cottage industry? Them little thing where they make mango and sugar cake and thing. No disrespect to that. And when we say cottage industry style economy, that can't work for Tobago.
It's not sustainable.
It's not sustainable. It's not progressive. It's not expansive enough. And therefore, we are looking to have cash injection in the billions of dollars so that we can do multiple things. We need to build a new city of Scarborough. You hear Dr. Brother James talking all the time about the port and so forth. So we have to transform the thing. It takes time to bring all these moving parts together, to create the matrix you want. It takes some time. But the work is being done. There's a lot of technical work. The administration is only approaching its midterm in the administration by the 6th of December or the 7th of December. There will be a conversation around that as to where the administration have journey, and I think there will probably be a conversation around that. So that is where we are.
All right, well, thank you so much, Mr. Richards. I know you have quite a lot to say, and we have a lot more to talk about in terms of the economy and so on. But I know this is a conversation we are going to be having over the next few weeks as we get ready for the budget presentation, and we're going to get to see what Tobago is going to have and how we're going to treat with all these issues that are within our country. So thank you so much, Mr. Richards, and viewers, thank you for staying with us, and we will be back with you again tomorrow. So see you then.
It's a brand new morning, rise up to a brand new dawning.